Hello, this is Ron from Joaracrafts, and today we're making a peaceful ocean dice set. This set began with a simple idea: put a fit a shell inside of a dice. Creating a cute sandy beach die with a real shell became a dream we wanted to achieve, but turning it into reality was much tougher than expected. Initially it was quite tricky to find a nice color for the water layer, and eventually we found out that actual sand is quite heavy when mixed with resin. So, we needed to find a good sand color using mica powder. We'll start by taking out these two alcohol inks, navy and turquoise. They will help us create a clear, watery layer in the first pour. But there's a trick. You don't want to pour the ink directly into the resin. You'll actually want to place a drop on a surface you don't mind tinging with blue inks. In our case, we'll place one drop of each ink in the wax paper protecting our working surface. Then, we'll place our mixing stick in the two-part epoxy resin mix, touch each color once at a time, and mix them in the cup. This teeny tiny fraction of color will be enough to reach the color we want. Adding more ink will create too strong of a blue. Once the ink is mixed evenly, it's time to pour the resin in the mold. We want to fill each die mold about 50 to 60% of the mold itself. Here, in this case, we had too much resin in some of the dice, so we used the pipette to remove any excess resin. Once we're happy with the amount of water-inked resin, we'll close the mold and put it in the pressure pot for 24 hours. Once the 24 hours have passed, we'll open the pressure pot and proceed with the trickiest part of this die set. We begin the next day by opening the mold and checking if the resin level looks alright, and if the curing went as intended as well. Then we go over our little collection of hand-picked clean shells and start picking a good set of shells that could match together. It might be good to pick a few extras, just in case some of the shells are slightly too large or even too small to be noticed. Once a good amount of shells are picked, we dry fit the shell into each die just to see how the set would look. Now that the dry fitting is complete, we tidy up any leftover shells and place the chosen shells on the lid, making sure to organize them according to the die they should fit in. As you can see here, the shell's position is mirrored on the lid, so place them following that order, and this will help a lot later. To make sure these little shells stay in place when pouring the next layer of resin, we'll glue them using a dollop of Hue Resin. Once each die in the mold has a bit of UV resin, we place the shells on top, following our little cheat sheet from earlier. And once all shells are placed again, we use our UV light to harden the resin. But we won't sit waiting for that to happen, of course. While that's ongoing, we'll mix a 2-part epoxy resin cup and get started with a sandy layer and multitask if needed by turning on the UV light over time. To create the sandy layer mix, we'll be using this shiny white mica powder and this flash gold mica powder. But for now, let's put the UV light and the mold aside, so we don't pour epoxy resin on top of the light accidentally. This color is quite tricky to recreate, and sometimes we'll tweak it if necessary. But in general, 1 scoop of white and a scoop of gold will give us a pale sand-like color in the resin. This mix is one of the most mesmerizing ones to see as the colors swirl together in resin over time. We weren't quite happy with how pale the sand looked, so we added a bit more gold mica powder into it. Whoops, a tiny bit of black was still left over in the cup from a previous pour. Let's take it out and continue mixing this beautiful color. The next step is entirely optional, but we do like the extra grainy texture a bit of sand adds to the resin. So while adding too much sand can cause a wavy dyes, adding a teaspoon of sand seems to be enough to keep the dyes balanced. This sandy resin is looking gorgeous right now. Let's pour it on top of the shells. Before that, let's double check that all shells are stuck in place, just to make sure they won't move off center when pouring the next layer. They seem pretty stuck in there. That means we can indeed pour the sandy resin over them. As the resin attempts to make its way under these shell lips, it's possible that large bubbles get stuck in the mold. To deal with them, we use a toothpick to force those larger bubbles out, refilling the mold with the sandy resin as necessary. Once all bubbles have seemingly been filled, it's time to finally pour a thin layer of resin on the lid to prevent air bubbles from appearing in the top numbers. Finally, we'll close the mold and place it in the pressure pot for another 24 hours. Once the ties are cured, we'll give them a round of sanding. Wow, it's been quite a journey, but how worthy it was. These dies are not even painted, and they're already looking gorgeous. It's time to paint this beautiful die set, but honestly, I'd feel pretty horrible if I were to use the same brush I've been using for the past year. Maybe it's time to try something new. This acrylic marker can be filled with any paints, and it's been something I've been experimenting with mixed results. Painting D6 is not so bad since the numbers are so large, but overall, I generally have two very distinct issues while painting with this marker. Sometimes the paint is too runny, sometimes the paint is just too dry. And overall, using this marker to paint on camera was an absolute pain, as the camera kept trying to focus on the marker's text apparently. For the 20, painting with this marker is a complete nightmare. At this point, I'd rather use a brush. All because the numbers are so tiny, and the marker just can't fit into it. My theory is that the tip is just too thick, and perhaps using a thinner marker to paint these smaller dice would go easier? If anyone watching this video has any feedback, feel free to drop it in the comments below. We're eager to make the painting of the dice a bit less messy in the future. But until then, we'll probably continue using the brush and wipe method and continue painting this dice set using the Joaracrafts White Citadel paint. Whoa, what's going on here? What a ruckus. That's not a beach towel, I need that microfiber cloth. And these dice are all over the place now. Gotta tidy this up. Behave now. As any other dice set, we're now on the finish line to see their true beauty. We'll just drench a microfiber cloth with some rubbing alcohol and start rubbing the excess white paint off the dice. This will give the dice a nice shiny finish and clear up the numbers a bit. And here's how the Peaceful Ocean dice set looks like once it's complete. It's honestly quite difficult to put in words how gorgeous these dice look like, but we love how clear the blue hue is and how pretty the sand color turned out as well, and how well they all match with the real shells inside of them. It's really difficult to put these dice down apparently. There's something about using real materials that give this kind of a dice a different essence, so to say. It's as if a memory is frozen in time and you can always look back at it and go back to that moment. Interesting. During this step, we also notice small white dots on the dice. This seems to have come from the last mold wash for some reason, but we assembled up the affected faces and painted them off camera once again to give them a proper shiny polish for the dice rolls and glamour shots. We really hope you liked the Peaceful Ocean die set as much as we loved going through this journey to get this set complete for you today. Remember that if you'd like a Peaceful Ocean dice of your own, you can get it through our Etsy shop using the link in the description below. That's also the best way you can support our endeavors, as all dice sets in this channel and more can be found there for sale. Besides visiting our Etsy shop, we always appreciate when you leave a like or share the video with your friends. Or, if you have an opinion, we always love to read them, so feel free to leave a comment down below if you have any opinions, suggestions or feedback. And if you really enjoyed the video, and if you don't want to miss any of our future videos, subscribe to the channel as we have many more dice ideas and crafts to share. With all that said, thank you for watching, and may the dice rolls be in your favor. Bye bye!